Hello and welcome to this month's coffee break. It is the 1st of January 2024. Embrace your New Year resolution of joining us every month, or not. Maybe you've actually got other New Year's resolutions. I have a feeling there's probably better ones than that, but hey, it's not a bad one. We're here to talk today in an unabashed celebration of Evergreen. Like was said in the abstract, often impersonated, never duplicated. I know that's a bold claim. We're going to back that up as we go along the way. You know, some things that look like we almost wanted to have some fun with like Elvis impersonators, but the graphics there were trademarked and all that other stuff. And it was like, you know, there's things we can have fun with here. But 10 plus years of Evergreen. I'm joined today and really appreciate their willingness to be with me. Chris Sprague and Rich Barlow. Guys, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
And as I say that, I'm like, there's the inevitable. You'll both say something at the same time, but you know, hey, so we plan it, but not too much. Diving in with a little bit of housekeeping, and I think I'll pull the audio down here a little bit there. We'll kind of leave it in the background for just a second. So this is a series. We are now actually on month 37. At some point, maybe we'll do a huge coffee break birthday party. I don't know. This is a series, and it's a solution focus. So hopefully they have aged better than average. And so maybe other webinar online content that you see. We always have the previous recordings up in a full list there, you know, at the bit.ly link, as well as at purestores.com/events. You can see the current one. You can see previous ones. You can see the other series that we have here. This is actually expanded and changed a little bit. There's a question about gift cards because sometimes, hey, it is a coffee break, and I recognize especially how we started was, hey, for registering and attending, the first 1,000 folks do get a $10 coffee card. Hopefully, you're not just coming for that, and I think we've seen that over the years. Actually, like, hey, that's a cool thing. But it is the first 1,000 folks, and if you're folks in this category, which ironically, Chris and Rich are a good number of the people that you talk to, I think they fall inside the government and state employee category. We appreciate you, but we can't send you stuff. I think you know this. Briefly, as we're talking about Evergreen, my name's Andrew Miller, of course, host of Coffee Break and producer. Not too much about me, but just kind of more where my history is here and thinking about we're going to wander into non-disruptive upgrades and not having to migrate data. And for me, I can't remember if I told this here, you know, early in the career, overnight upgrades were actually kind of cool. It was NetWare at the time, NetWare 4 to 5 and 5 to 6 and other stuff. And you got free pizza and the break room refrigerator. You didn't have to pay for all the Mountain Dew that you got out of it. And you're in your early and mid 20s. And hey, that was actually kind of cool and fun. Why not? Kind of thing. So maybe that means I'm just a nerd or a geek. But either way, you know, history of upgrades. Chris, do you mind introducing yourself, please?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. My name's Chris Sprague. I principal technologist, as Andrew kind of led into. I focus on the state, local, and education customers out there in the West US. And yeah, I've been doing this for a couple and a half decades now. It gets harder to say every year. It seems like the time just flies by.
We could all be in denial.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, just a couple more things about me personally. You see some pictures there of my family. I got my wife and my son that's up in college at the University of Idaho there on the left, which is always interesting because I'm a big Boise State fan and he goes up to, you know, the in-state rival. Down below is my daughter and her fiance. And then on the right is my wife and my youngest, who's in 3rd grade, 8-year-old, which, speaking of the weather, today he's on his 3rd snow day in a week now. So I think he's had more snow days in the last week than I did my whole life growing up. So it's got cold and lots of snow here. So super happy to be here. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you, Chris. Rich, please.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. My name is Rich Barlow. I'm a principal technologist for state and local government and education as well. I cover the East. I live in Richmond. I've been doing this for way too long, 30 plus years. You can see I've worked at a whole bunch of manufacturers. So I consider this to be my 4th manufacturer because I got a job at EMC and somehow ended up working for Dell, Andrew. I don't know, man. I didn't apply for that job.
Not what you signed up for.
Not what I signed up for. So, but anyway, I've been here for Pure about 9 months. Been here about 9 months. It's very cool. I'm new enough to still have that new car smell of a job. You know what I'm trying to say? Things I love. I love my family. You can see pictures here. This is an old picture. I use it just because I like it. My kids are older than that now. My daughter's 21. She's a philology major. She's looking for a graduate program, either Harvard or Princeton right now. She's smart. She's way smarter than him, for darn sure. My son, he's 18. He's just getting ready to graduate and go to college himself. So as far as my interest, I like to make stuff. I'm a maker, man. I love building things. So I have a CNC lathe. I have all the tools. I'm right now. I'm in my studio. It's the quietest place in the house. So it brings me to the third thing I'd like to do is I play guitar very poorly. I collect them better than I play them. I like to say. I like history.
Awesome.
I read a lot of history books. Anyway, that's me.
Very cool. No, thank you. And in case you're wondering, by the way, so Chris and Rich reached out to me actually about coffee break, and we are brainstorming about topics, and we thought about Evergreen because it's just such a core thing, and as principal technologist, it cuts across the whole Pure portfolio. So it's just like we got different folks on, but being very field focused, going the whole portfolio felt like a good fit. Last piece, advertising, as we should, for next month. I'm going to be joined by Marcia Pierce. She's actually on my team. I'm on a global solutions and strategy team currently. She is the global practice leader for Microsoft databases, even kind of databases in general. We had a little bit of a snafu with the registration link. That will be out soon. There will be a calendar block coming, please. I see even a comment in the chat of like, Marcia's one of the best, which is the foundation of why Pure is good for databases, some new pieces there, some of her experiences of being even a hybrid DBA, actually SQL and Oracle, which is a little bit unique. So to the topic for this month, which is focused in around Evergreen. I think I'll just go ahead and pull the music all the way down here as we go. So we are going to, as always, have a little bit of a lightweight agenda, but as we put in the abstract, sometimes, when too seems too good to be true is actually, well, true. First part, there and back again. You may know the literary reference there, but it's keyed off a little bit of Chris's career. So some career stories and principles from both Chris and Rich. Then too good to be true, investigating the foundation of Evergreen, which underpins how it can actually be true. A 10-year plus genealogy of Evergreen in real life, actually showing, talking through some of that experience for customers, and then even showing in Pure One how you can see this. Have to be careful about confidentiality, as we always should be. Then last but not least, always evolving what's new with Evergreen. And frankly, we had to cherry pick some items here and not be comprehensive because there was too much to be able to be totally comprehensive. We've got the amazing Stan Yanitsky on. He's been at Pure for an ever so long time. He's going to be helping us with the Q&A throughout. So please make sure to put Q&A into the Zoom Q&A box. Stan will be helping with that. And then as always, we have a dedicated section for Q&A at the end. So before we dive into section number one, Olivia, if you don't mind kicking off the first poll, this one is going to be a little bit more, just kind of having a little bit of fun with it. I can't remember, Chris and Rich, if you saw the final version of the questions here. You don't get to vote, sorry, but you were the ones who gave input. Let's go old school, literally. I think Rich, this was you. It was like, did you study? Go ahead. I see you thinking.
Yeah, so I was class in 1988 in high school, right? So
Mhm.
we had computer science majors in 1988, but they were studying the theory of computing. It wasn't like anything practical to it, right? So I graduated in 1992 with the most from college with the most useless thing in the world, a bachelor's degree in a science. I have a dual major in chemistry and physics, and there's absolutely nothing you can do with a bachelor's degree in that. And somehow over years, I went 3 years and got a theology degree as well. So 2 degrees, useless as well. But somehow over the years ended up in IT. I think is
Yeah,
because people that have a certain kind of brain, a mathematical sort of brain, are kind of attracted to this stuff, right?
I was a humanities major, only one class. I don't think we talked about your background, Chris, but okay. And then let's talk history. We were actually thinking about sometimes like, how long do things last in modern data centers? So actually having a little bit of fun. And the final one, it does make me happy to see some people choosing the mainframes are eternal answer. So, that's me making bad jokes. But diving in a little bit to first, there and back again, career principles. I think, Chris, I'll maybe kind of toss it to you a little bit because you've even, as we were chatting, you've wandered from kind of generalist to specialist back to generalist again. And there are even some interesting principles. Actually, I see it here. Like you were a CS major, but you might kind of taking us through a little bit of career progression and some of the principles because sometimes we think these are one-way paths, but they're not really necessarily.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'm constantly searching for what that path is. So I think it's gone in and out. Um, love the title there and back again. It does kind of follow my story, and I'm a huge Tolkien fan, so I like the riff, and I've seen a ton of comments already quoting Hobbit and
Good.
Lord of the Rings. So yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I originally started out just kind of as a computer nerd, building my own stuff, liking hands-on, and similar to Rich, when I was in high school anyway, there wasn't any computer programs or classes to take. As I went on to college, I was a computer science major. Um, as one of the first to go to college from my family, I was like, hey, you're into computers, do computer science. And I found out I actually did web development for quite a while I was down in San Diego going to school, and but found out it is very narrow focused, and you're very focused on certain things. And I wanted to branch out more than that and get hands on. So I went more to the IT management generalist type degree. And throughout my career, so I mentioned I started as a web developer. I became the de facto IT tech support guy for that job because I was good at troubleshooting. Right, I was one of the only that honestly the only one that could troubleshoot some of the Macs we had and the networks, and it really reiterated to me that I liked being hands on. So throughout my career, I kept just kind of I say this a lot, but I kept saying yes to different things. I as a generalist, and hey, we've got some network stuff that needs done. Hey, would you like to do some virtualization? And so you say yes to those, and you kind of focus on each of those, and you might specialize in them. But I was continuing just to be kind of broad, the jack of all trades, master of none, if you will. And as my career progressed, I did get more generalist and focused on data protection, or excuse me, more focused on data protection. Specialized. I actually came to Pure Storage as a global modern data protection specialist, focused on that. And now, as principal technologist, the there and back again story is now I found out that I went back to kind of being a generalist. And I know that's not for everyone. Some people really like to focus, and we all have our own niche, but something keeps driving me back to wanting to understand the whole stack and be more of a generalist.
And I thought that was fascinating because sometimes you see people that kind of go throughout their career and they kind of specialize more and more and more and more. And maybe sometimes you feel either that's fulfilling or feel trapped, but you've actually kind of done this little bit of back and forth. So love it.
Yeah.
Rich, you mind kind of, well, yeah, Rich, kind of, so you've been here, you mentioned still new car smell. It's still there a little bit. And we were even riffing a little bit about how you got your first job in IT because you could type.
Yeah, so I was the weird kid in high school with a Commodore 64 and a VIC 20. I grew up
Mm,
in those days where you recorded your program you wrote on an audio tape. So I've always been into technology and computers, right? I've always been into
mm,
it. When I was just getting out of college and realizing how useless my degrees were, I had a friend who told me there were people looking for people to run computer backups, right? So three people showed up for the interview to run backups for this real estate company. Uh, I got hired because I was the only person who could type. The rest of the people, they could follow commands. They were hunting and pecking. This is 1995, right? People didn't really have typing skills unless you were a reason to run an IBM Selectric, right? People hadn't developed
mm-hmm,
the skill they have today. So
mm-hmm.
I got the job because I could type. So you never know what's going to get you a job, right? So I pretty much was a very generalized engineer in the beginning. I was the guy who took all the manuals home and read them at night. One of the places I was an engineer for Home Depot for a while back when they were owned by the two guys in Florida, much smaller then, and we used OS2 Warp and HPUX. And I was the guy that took home that the big shelf of manuals that sit in every data center that
Mm-hmm.
reads.
Mm-hmm.
I was a weirdo who took home and read them because I don't think there's any bad knowledge. Over the years, I got more and more interested in virtualization, though. That was my specialization. That was
Yeah,
virtualization.
that's how we met. That's how you and I met 15 years back. Around
That's
that.
it. Exactly right.
Yep.
I did GSX, right? Yeah, you did ESX. When ESXi came out, I'm putting some kind of embedded stuff on my servers. I was that guy, right? So it's you know virtualization, but now as a principal, I'm much more generalized again, and you just never know what direction your career is going to take. There is no bad knowledge, and there's no bad skill.
Yep. And even, I mean, coming to Pure, um, there was even a little bit of, when you came here, that it actually there was a piece of like you knew some pieces, I think, but then even this topic, like you got, I think what you said is like the direct flash pieces, like the flash engineering, but you didn't really get Evergreen until you came here. You might kind of expanding that a little, and yeah, that's actually a bridge to the next section too. But it's your story, it's your background.
Yeah, sure. So I can tell you folks the day I got it. the day I got this Evergreen thing. So I'd worked at NetApp. You guys saw my précis before. I had worked at EMC. I had worked at Dell. I worked as storage, virtualization and storage in all those companies. Well, they all have, non-disruptive, they're very disruptive, non-disruptive, but non-disruptive upgrades, right? They all said stuff like this, but in the end, everybody knew it was just words on a piece of paper. In the end, you were going to buy a brand new array with brand new disks. We're going to put it in a rack
Well,
somewhere and somehow migrate to the new array. That's how it's going to work. You can say
yeah.
whatever you want to say. That's how it's going to work in the end, right? So when I came here, I figured Evergreen was the same words. I didn't pay any attention to it. I really didn't pay any attention to the word Evergreen. I came here because of direct flash modules, Andrew. I
Which is
thought
cool
that,
too. But
hey,
yeah,
that's the place for hardware innovation, is at the
yeah,
edge at that piece. So anyway,
yeah.
I was at a very large correctional facility. I'd been with the company for about a month and a half. Very large correctional facility, and we were talking about video systems, stuff for recording video. Now think about it. These people have 19 petabytes of video, and think about the migration of a 19 petabyte NAS. 19
Not fun.
petabytes. Oh,
Yeah,
I mean,
you don't back it up. You just replicate it. It sits there forever. Yeah.
massive, right? It needs to be object, but these guys couldn't spell the word object if they tried. So anyway, we're sitting there, and the SE gets up and he gives a really good explanation of Evergreen, and just the words just go through my head. I don't actually hear it. The words just kind of float through my brain. And this old crufty dude in the back of the room, who was obviously had been a corrections officer since like dinosaurs roamed the earth. I mean, this guy had been on it forever, and he hadn't said
Mm-hmm.
a word through the
Mm-hmm.
entire meeting. He stood up and he said, hold on a second, son. Hold on." He said, "What are you saying to me? You're saying I never have to replace this again? You're saying that there's no disruption, and you're saying that I never have to talk to a storage sales rep ever again?" He said, "Why wouldn't everybody do this?" And it hit me. I'm like, wait a minute. These guys are serious about this. This is actually a thing. This is not just some made up legal wiggle
Extra
words.
slides,
Yeah,
architecture. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a real thing. And over the last 7.5 months, I've seen it. I've seen it in action. It's amazing. And I've seen the business model and the architecture it takes to make it work. Very
So
cool.
I think I'm going to use that as the cue to transition to section number two. Hopefully, Chris, I'm not cutting you off or anything. It's always, a little bit of back and forth, but I'm going to do an annoying cliffhanger where instead of following that right away, so I'll come right back to you in just a second, Rich. We're going to go ahead and actually close out poll number one. Actually, I'll end it here and I will share it, and we'll do poll two, just because, hey. So we've got there we go. Stop sharing. So old school. So it looks like actually maybe half of folks actually had some level of IT major. Cool. That's always interesting. And hopefully this is why we share this. So you can see, your peers who are joining. And the majority of people are 5 to 10 years for the OSPs, but there's a good chunk with 10 to 15 and 15 plus. I don't want you to get your employer in trouble or reveal stuff you shouldn't, but man, I'd be curious to see what that is in the chat, kind of thing. Sorry, Glee. So please comments either way. Go ahead. Cool. Okay. Olivia, let's go ahead and share poll number two, if that's all right, and we'll as always let that sit and go in the background. There we go. So now we're going to start to think about downtime, windows, and how many folks across your organization are impacted when downtime is required. So, Rich, what I love about that story, and I appreciate you telling me, is like, hey, someone guesses like, why would I do anything else? And so for folks that are listening in, it may be begging the question. So what are we actually still talking about here? It sounds kind of interesting. And some random person in a believable story said it's really important. But do you mind giving us a little bit of a walkthrough of kind of the core of Evergreen from an overarching standpoint? Because there's so many facets here. There's the business models, there's the technology, but maybe let's focus on kind of the start with what's the impact as a customer? Like when the gentleman there said, like, why would you do anything else? He was referring to some of the stuff here. Do you mind kind of giving that narration a little bit? Keep telling that story.
Sure. What Evergreen means is this. Evergreen to you as a customer, it means you're going to buy a storage array, right? That storage array is going to sit on your floor, and you're going to deploy it once. You have to migrate to it. There's no magic, right? We have to migrate into that
Don't
array.
do it. Yeah.
We have NAS products, we have block products. We've probably talked about the portfolio here before.
Mm-hmm.
But that product, as it sits there, is going to be upgraded in place. In other words, instead of buying new controllers, I'm going to upgrade the controllers to the new controller version. And you're not gonna change the identity of the array. It's the same array, same name, same WWN, same IQN, same all the technical nerd stuff. None of that changes because it follows that array that really
Hmm.
actually it's a piece of sheet metal. That's the array. It follows that piece of sheet metal. You're not doing disks. You're not exchanging the disks. I remember many times when you get a new array, they bring all new disks with it, right? That's not the way it works at Pure, unless you want to, and we'll do that for you. We'll give you all the money back for any money you spent on disks, by the way. So you're never gonna pay for a storage twice.
Direct
You do
flash lasts a long time. Previous sessions on that. Keep going.
No planned downtime, so we don't need outage windows. We're going to tell some stories today about customers that do this during the day. Because they've done it before and they trust it. There's no migration because it's not moving, and also full performance while you're doing it. And I know this myself, and I'll tell a story later about my lab. I have a pretty extensive lab here because I'm a nerd, and I pounded the snot of these things because I wanted to prove it to myself while we were doing upgrades. And you see of course, when the controllers swap over, you might see a little blip in performance, just right performance, but it keeps rolling. And we see these arrays sitting on the floor for 10 plus years. We have, from where we first started as a company, there's still arrays out there that have been upgraded through this entire process. It's really cool. So those arrays can live through multiple generations too. So remember the old M series, Andrew, we had the M series. We were
Even
able
before
to
that, the
buy
420s. Yeah. Uh-huh.
multi-generational, and we have guarantees for that as well. We've committed and we'll put our money behind it and our money where our mouth is and make commitments to you around Evergreen that we think are very, very interesting. What's cool to me, this is what's cool to me. And this is all, you guys can read the slide. Uh, what's cool to me is I've seen it work now. I've seen it actually happen. And I see customers that were very much like myself that were very doubtful. They'd schedule these big outage windows and, spend 4 weeks with change control, figuring all this stuff out. And then they'd do the upgrade and nothing would happen. It was a non-event. They would
That's
upgrade
all. That's it.
software or hardware. And they're like, wait a minute, this works. Because we designed it from the beginning to do that, by the way.
And in 3 years, you don't have big maintenance bills. That's the flat and fair maintenance. I think, Chris, I'll transition over to you to kind of keep peeling the happy onion, the one that doesn't make you
Yeah.
cry, kind of thing. But like the next layer down, because there's even some great stuff here about the history, and I'll just let you keep going if that's all right.
Yeah. The first thing that stands out to here, just kind of go on what Rich said, is that little icon on the far right there, right? No forklift upgrades anymore. It's really an amazing thing when you've been through that cycle, to, you think maybe it's a couple days or a few weeks cycle, but really it's months and months, right? You plan
Hmm.
a few months of figuring out what is my next hardware upgrade, what storage do I want to get, what size do I need. And then you make the purchase, and then it's a few months to actually transition all that data, right? And all of that's gone. And not only in a, we kind of talked about this before, Andrew. We talk about non-disruptive upgrades. We talk about no downtime. You can see there greater than 6 nines of availability and uptime across our fleet. And that is not only just uptime, but I like to mention that non-disruptive means more than just not going down, right? It means my performance stays there. It means I don't have half performance as I'm failing over controllers or things like that. I think those are huge. And and Rich kind of touched on this too. You can see the timeline down there. Actually, when it became real for me, I had a customer. I worked at a reseller before I ever came to the OEM side and the manufacturer side. And we had a customer that we took from an FA 420 up to an M20. And when I saw that live, this was a hospital in the middle of the day, blew my mind. Right? It's just amazing to see that you can do that during the day. Um, the chat keeps catching my attention. There's so many comments about people that have done it.
It's
And
great.
all that time, this is just getting better and better. It non-disruptive. It keeps getting better across generations, as it says here, for 10 plus years. And then you can just see the other numbers. Not only does it get better, no downtime, but capacity, density, all those things have improved over the years.
I think you had a story from Kaz, Rich.
Yeah, this is another one of those things that it made me shake my head like I had a bee stuck inside my sinuses or something. Like, what in the world? when I first started because I didn't understand it, right? So Kaz said, and Kaz is one of our founders. If you folks don't know Kaz, if you've seen a guy at Pure in shorts, a black t-shirt, holding a can of Diet Coke, you saw Kaz because that's what he is, right?
Mhm.
So uh, Kaz was standing in front of a group of my customers, and he said, you know what? The first 6 arrays we installed are all at one customer. They're at one place, right? He couldn't mention a name because, got to protect these people. But the first 6 arrays they installed were here. Of those first 6 arrays in 2012, 5 of them are still in production, and they're up to the most modern R4. In other words, they started as the old FA series. They went all the way to the M series, all the way to the X series, through all the versions of X, R1, R2, R3, R4. Now they're X, I believe they're X
Maybe
X90.
R3, depending on the time. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, depends on where they're falling at. But so they are, but they're up to the latest thing. So not only, and we'll keep saying this, not only did it keep up to date, it actually got better over time. It got more powerful over time.
Chose to move this forward just to highlight this stat, the 97% plus of Pure Arrays 5+ years. So we've got great stories. And then we've got statistics behind it. I think you had a little more here, Chris, before I jump into one last architecture comment. I wanted to make sure to let you keep going, Chris, if you wanted here.
Yeah, there was another kind of story that came to my mind. I saw a couple comments about downtime and non-disruptive upgrades. Um, we just pulled out a stat that there's a significant number of arrays out there. We're kind of changing the way people have to think about naming their naming conventions, right? Because kind of going back to that last slide, we see a number of customers. They might be an X50 today, and it's still named M20 or something along those lines,
Put
right?
the
So you really
array model into the host name. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
and so we've had a significant number of customers talk about that. So that's pretty amazing. And then I'll share a cause story that I thought was great as well. Just piggyback off Rich there a little bit. I heard cause recently say something. What else do you buy that is in 10 years is still as pristine and in looks like brand new like the day you bought it? And he said the answer is nothing, right? Unless I buy a collector's item and I put it on the shelf and never touch it, never play with it. In 10 years, it's still pristine. But then I was thinking to myself, um, you know, Kaz was underselling himself as well because, yeah, that thing might be pristine after 10 years, but Pure Storage gets better after 10 years, right? So I thought it was interesting because it was a great story, but I also was thinking, yeah, you undersold yourself, Kaz, on what you've created here. So that's pretty amazing.
I'll make sure to let Kaz know he should improve that story for you and tag your name on that there. The other piece here I wanted to highlight is this was even a report that was run about Active Cluster. This was is a synchronous replication, which usually is not something that is included at no cost and simple. That's not the words you would use to describe other synchronous replication I've used. But a third of the arrays running Active Cluster were actually purchased before we released it. And then sometimes we've got great stories, but to your point, Rich, earlier, like, oh, everybody says they do this. Well, the numbers are, we can point to, can somebody else say, hey, that they've actually upgraded 10,000 plus controllers non-disruptively and kept the identity. So like this goes to even that 10 plus years. Now, and actually, man, as always, things expand because there's so much good stuff here. And we may summarize the final section. The folks are like, man, they're only on section 2. There's so much good stuff. If you go back in the time machine, we did a whole coffee break and actually been wandering through in Pure Report Unplugged, myself and JD Wallace, the 15 architectural decisions that go back to the very beginning of the company. They are, frankly, some technical gifts that keep giving, right? In some ways, consumer flash actually still benefits us in the area of QLC, how we handled MLC and then TLC, et cetera. So this is some of the technical underpinnings that you can't retrofit later, or even if you can, it's not worth doing so from a financial standpoint. That's why it's very hard. There's a little bit of innovator's dilemma kind of stuff when you look at some pure competitors who say they do this. They can't bake it in from day one, and it doesn't make financial sense to retrofit. I can talk about each one of these, but I think I'll just go and maybe Rich first and then Chris. If you had to pick one, I know it's hard, and then give a little bit of a soundbite or two. Like what speaks to you on this list that you would want to highlight for the audience?
So I'm going to cheat and say mine is the 16th one
Eh,
that's unspoken, is that there's a totally different business model underpinning what we do. I've had a lot of customers ask, how do you stay in business? How do you guys stay in business doing this? It's because we did this from the beginning. It was causes and the founder's choice from day one. This is how it worked. because of that, they built the business around that model. Our competitors never did. They built it, and I'm not
They
blaming
need
them.
refreshes
Yeah,
financially. Yeah.
they need that capital influx every 3 to 5 years. And that's NetApp, EMC, Dell, all the companies I work for, that's their business model. And now they're trying to keep up with Pure, and they're having a very hard time with that because they're not designed to do it.
Chris.
Yeah, so Rich cheated there and went off the list. So
Uh,
I'll stick to
uh.
this, Andrew. And there are so many great things on here, right? We could go down so many technical rabbit holes and the things we do differently and the purchasing model and all that. But I'm gonna stick with number one there. And actually someone already put in the chat, simplicity is one of the greatest gifts that keeps on giving. And so that built-in simplicity at the heart of everything that Pure Storage does is amazing. To think that we can bring all of these technological advancements, purchasing options and those things, non-disruptive upgrades, and still be the simplest storage platform you've ever used out there is amazing to me. So that built-in simplicity, while it seems simple, it's one thing. It's a difficult thing to do as you continue to technologically advance to keep everything simple. So I love that one.
All the things you don't have to do. Okay,
What's the old saying?
Rich.
The most complex thing to do in engineering is to make something look simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we make it
Mm-hmm.
look what people are like, why don't everybody do this? Because they didn't design it that way from the beginning. It's very simple.
So with that, wrap in section two, I'm going to go ahead and before we do poll three, I will end the poll here and I will share back the first one in case anyone's good. And this, to be honest, was actually this sometimes is a little bit of data gathering for us, because I'm curious. So, folks here, kind of, do you understand some of the pain around downtime windows and coordination, et cetera? So there's a good chunk here. Um, yes, hey, it's a third that it was easy. 40% that have trouble finding a window, or they've seen another 21%. So that's one to two-thirds. And then some folks didn't even realize this is a thing. And how many people across your IT system? So the vast majority is, a decent number. But even a quarter, it's a takes a lot of time to coordinate. Um, any comments there, just Rich or Chris, before I start the next poll here?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with the
You lived
that
this.
first question, that 40%. I just trying to find a window for downtime was always a struggle. So I'm jealous of that other third of people that say it's a no big deal because I really, even if we had a good change management process, sometimes we didn't have one of those in place. It is difficult. I've had experiences where we tried to explain to the business like something's happening wrong here. We had a network stack where they weren't the right, nothing was right, and we knew it was going to go down. And they wouldn't let us take it down because it was too critical, and it went down over the weekend. So yeah.
Eventually, you get the downtime window. Eventually, you get it. Somehow, it happens. So,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
Olivia, if you don't mind launching the third poll, and then we'll accelerate a little bit here. So if you're a pure customer, how many times I know we've got pure customers in here, if only through all the stories we're seeing in the chat. And man, we're gonna go back and read this chat because it's just so much fun. Too many good stories. Can't read them all. How many times have you done hardware, software upgrades? And then if you didn't have to do this, maybe, or you're thinking it before you were a pure customer, and this was something you had to think about, or if you're not a pure customer, how many person days? It used to be like man hours or person hours, whatever. But you think about how much coordination times it take, not just for disruptive upgrades, but I know some folks that they have permanent migration teams. That's all they do. They migrate data all the time because they have enough arrays that they're always moving stuff around just because it's what they have to do. So curious to see and kind of hear the impact for you there and tried to represent that decently. Section number three. So a 10 plus year genealogy of Evergreen in real life. What we decided to do here was actually kind of dive in on one specific feature that helps really illustrate or visualization that helps illustrate what we're talking about. And then frankly, just tell a couple stories. That's, as I think some of the point of coffee break. So if you look inside Pure One, this is the official slide. Thanks to Matt Bradford and Stan and other folks on the Pure One team. There's an asset management category in the side of Pure One. It gives you a comprehensive view of a lot of things that matter around contract, lifecycle management. Okay, cool. But kind of hidden down in there is this view how each asset or subscription has evolved over time with the genealogy view. And to me, this is just one of the coolest things ever. Now, full disclosure, we're using screenshots here just because it was a little bit of anonymization, even from some internal stuff, or where we have permission to be able to let show things, kind of thing. Just because We try to be very careful about customer data, but I think this just like you take an array and you know that it's actually moved all the way through here over the years. I think Chris, maybe it was you that mentioned kind of a proof of work idea here, something like that. I'll just kind of toss the ball to let you keep going.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I have it's this is a local customer I've worked with a long time, but gave us the example of when this first came out. That customer actually made me aware of this feature when it first came out and said, I love the genealogy view because it's easy for me to go back in history and see what I've done. But to your point, Andrew, he even used it. His example was to my manager or to my director, I show them as a proof of work. Look at all the stuff we've been able to accomplish, right? So where I can remember having jobs where I'd write down what I did just so we get credit, and it's all here for that person, right? I've also had examples of using this to correlate with other upgrades, right? Customer go back and say, hey, our data reduction rate just got better. What did we do? Oh, look at that. We did that upgrade that date right before then, right? Or in a reverse fashion where something else is going on and you're troubleshooting in the environment, and you can go in here and say, no changes were made to this in the last couple of weeks. So this is a fantastic view. I love that we show it and make it this simple. And not only does it show you the genealogy for every array here, like you can see, but it also shows you all the appliances up there. You can see this one, for example, 79 hardware upgrades and 298 software upgrades. So it just shows you how simple it is, and it keeps that timeline view for you.
You were going to tell a lab story earlier, Rich, and you held part of it. Back to you.
Sir, so I like I said before, I'm a nerd. So one of the cool things about Pure is it's an engineering company, so you can get gear. It's older gear, but you can get gear shipped to your house.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
got a pair of X50s shipped to here, shipped to my house. They were R2s. I have a bunch of servers. I have 10 gig. I have all kind of stuff here. So I took it upon myself. I said, look, I'm gonna do a software upgrade. I'm gonna do a hardware upgrade, and I'm gonna do a flash drive upgrade. All three different kinds of upgrade in these systems, and I'm not going to look up how to do it. I'm going to see how intuitive it is to do it. And I
But kind of
figured it
puts
out.
my way through it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to just futz my way through it and figure it out. Honestly, it was incredibly simple. Incredibly simple. It was literally three commands for the software upgrade. The only thing I did is I was too lazy to walk down the stairs to took the USB drive and the other controller. So I had to figure out I had to do IPv6 SCP.
Ouch.
That took me some memory because Lord, because
Colon
you got
colon instead of
yeah, and
dots
the
between.
separator
Yeah.
commands and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So other than that, that was it. It was incredibly simple. And I did all three of these types of upgrades. I went from SAS drives to DFMs. I went from three different versions of Purity and went from an R2 to an R3, all while I had my servers beating the snot out of those poor controllers. I had FIO and shit was the other one. And shoot. Anyway,
Iostat, low
uh,
gen. I don't know.
load
Yeah,
gen.
whatever.
Okay. Yeah, load gen running against it the whole time. And because you get putting different loads on at the same time. And when you would look back, you could see it. You'd see a little blip, and then the new hardware would come online, and the new software come online, and you see it go back up higher than it was before. It's amazing.
So call this if you're a pure customer. Make sure to go look inside asset and assets, and then appliance genealogy, and you can see this. And it's actually a really cool thing. It's not. I mean, I believe it. I believe it was featured in a Pure One banner at the top, kind of thing. But there's a lot of stuff there, and we keep adding things. So if you're not paying attention, you're like, "Ooh, this could be a neat little nugget." The other one last story here is that there's actually one of the engineers that work with on a periodic basis on various projects, a gentleman named Dag. He's been at Pure for quite a while. I'm not going to say his last name just because I want to give him credit, but I'm not sure if I should say his last name on a couple thousand people here. But he was actually saying that he had run a query that at one point found, and this is even to your previous comment, Chris, about kind of changing array naming. Like, so some down in kind of the weeds, but very practical stuff that we don't think about. That a non-significant number of arrays that had a name with the form of pure 01M20, which is a model years back, right? Kind of thing. Um, last decade, right? But they were currently running like XR2, XR3 hardware. So they were like three, four, five, six generations past that. and that even naming conventions, I mean, if depending on your listening, you may use Star Wars names, or you may be more of a pets versus cattle kind of guy, or lady, or maybe you prefer Star Trek instead of Star Wars. We can fight that out in the chat if you want to. But either way, like you pick your names and they stay forever or not. So even like someone like Evergreen, like this lasting that long forces reevaluating naming conventions. So like kind of this interesting unintended impact. And I did want to make sure to kind of put back up here just because it's such a great proof point of that genealogy view goes to that 10,000 plus controllers upgraded via Evergreen, 97 plus percent of pure arrays still in service, arrays that have gotten even software features that weren't even talked about when the customers bought them, which is just really pretty cool. I think last year is just a little bit of story time. I'll start out here if that's all right. Just signs that like there's so much here and how do you encapsulate it? Last year, not actually 2 years ago now, no, a year and a half, Accelerate was in Los Angeles. And there was a gentleman named Rene Lopez, as you kind of figured out by the picture, who actually came on stage and was being interviewed, which of course means he's kind of friendly to Pure. He works at this company you've probably heard of called Delta Airlines, right? They are a Pure customer, obviously. And at one point he says, hey, I'm going to go off script. And there's this, you kind of almost see this look of fear in the presenter's eyes for a minute, kind of thing, or maybe making that up. Prakash, he's a snappy dresser. And then what happened was Renee said, hey, originally I thought Evergreen was marketing BS, and he says it. And I really just bought in for the flat and fair maintenance. You legally said I'm not going to raise your maintenance on year 4, like a lot of happens commonly. And then we were able to upgrade 30 arrays in 30 days with planes in the air without any hiccups. And I believed it, kind of thing. Of course, then that was years back. But so just encapsulating multiple pieces of what Evergreen means in a story. I'm having a little bit of fun with it too, the look of fear. But um, Chris, or maybe Rich, I'll have you keep going. I think you had a story, and then I'll toss it to you, Chris, for a story as we kind of wrap up this section here.
I
Or
just
did
think,
you already tell it? My bad. Yeah, keep going.
yeah,
Sorry.
I just think how amazing that is. I mean, I don't have a story for that right now, but just how amazing an airline company, all the critical stuff they've
Mhm.
got, that they trust us enough to do that. And then we didn't fail. It worked. It's amazing.
Yeah,
So
I think
that I think,
it's amazing
yeah,
where
go ahead,
they're
Chris.
people aren't expecting it, right? And then they
Mhm.
kind of like Rich. I didn't really know what this evergreen thing was, and then I experience it, and you have this aha moment. So
So with that, we'll go ahead and end. And we do have a fourth poll, by the way. We'll share this one. It's more about topics. So pure customer. So I see less than 5. It's a healthy distribution here. I'm not going to, I think, read the answers at too much, but weeks to months. So this is where um, sometimes you get in the world of ROIs and TCOs and justifying. Having this much productivity back, man, that makes a difference. And hopefully this is not in the realm of shrinking teams, but this is not the stuff we want to do. This is the stuff we stay up late doing, and it always takes longer than you think, and you just kind of suck it up at a personal level. I see a story there, a comment, Rich. Yeah, cool. So diving into uh, the last section, and for those who are joining in, we'll go a little bit past the 45-minute mark. I think we'll be done at about the 50-minute mark. So, what is new? There's always new stuff here. So, we decided to kind of cherry pick 3 different things. We actually had a large launch in London around Evergreen and Pure One pieces. Now, one thing that we haven't talked about, we've talked about the outcome, what you see as a customer or as a partner, even kind of thing. We talked about briefly about some of the underpinnings, what you see in Pure One. However, there's a whole aspect of from a subscription standpoint, how you choose to consume this, procure it. There's financial pieces in there like CapEx and OpEx, but it's far more than that. So, as some of the stuff that we go into around what's new, have to at least give a brief commentary on the models of how you can purchase Evergreen. So there's Evergreen Forever, which is a classic CapEx model. You purchase it, but it's a better than average one because you pay flat and fair maintenance and it keeps getting better over time. All the stuff that we talked about applies here. Based on that strength, that's what got Pure to where we are today. We introduced what we call Evergreen One. This is a full storage as a service on prem. It's driven with SLAs and tiers. We're going to talk about that more later. So it's almost like a cloud storage service, but on prem with all the benefits that you like. And then you subscribe to amount of capacity. And then in between, we have Evergreen Flex. That's where it's a combination of you control and purchase the hardware, but then you actually subscribe to the software and support. Sometimes this is for areas where regions in the world where Evergreen One can't be offered, or sometimes about data sovereignty or control of the certain hardware models. There's what's this in between piece, which is offered even when there's sometimes, people have to have hardware ownership, but they want to get as much consumption as they can. Okay, so those are the models that you can have. Now, the reason I mentioned that is just to set the table because we've spent a great amount of time diving into Evergreen One with John Brett last year and Paul Ferraro, et cetera. So we've gone into these, but in case you didn't get those, the three things that we want to highlight today, I'm going to go first. First is we introduced recently. It's called Paid Power and Rack Space Commitment. I realize I'm running the risk here of a bunch of words on the slide. This actually plays into the Evergreen One offering because it goes to the idea if you have a storage service and say it's in the cloud, you don't think about there being a separate bill for the power and the rack space. You subscribe to a storage service. So one, Pure is so power efficient. We've talked about this previously with direct flash and power consumption, et cetera, that we can actually put our money where our mouth is on this and actually cut a check or, a payment for the amount of energy and rack space that over the course of the contract, 1, 2, 3 years, that our hardware will consume in your data center. Now, this is based on rate cards that are set by country and by region, et cetera. So it's not submit your power bill. That would be too complex and frankly messy. But this is a level of confidence both about our power consumption, so that goes into sustainability, and also that we know it will be. And sometimes, even if you're listening in and you have folks in a facilities department that are like, I don't really care what you run, this sometimes even allows you to say, hey, this is impactful to you. It's actually going to be that much less from a power standpoint. And you may choose for that payment to go over to the facilities team. And now they're engaged and on board, and you've actually made a friend in your organization and an ally, kind of thing. So that's one. That's a new release and announcement. I think, Chris, I'm going to toss it to you for a little bit of around Evergreen One. There's some new service level agreements, and they're ransomware and zero data loss, not data loss. But over to you to highlight some new stuff here.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Continuing on the Evergreen One story, this, is our as a service type offering. So while just if you do it in perpetual, which we call Evergreen Forever, like Andrew said, is kind of your typical, you pay, it's better than your typical, but you pay and continue maintenance, and we'll give you those controller upgrades over time and do those non-disruptive upgrades. You can do it as a service. And when you do Evergreen One, which is our service offering, all those are based on SLAs or service level agreements that now falls on Pure Storage to meet these things. Like Andrew said, no data loss, zero data loss, and zero planned downtime. But the fantastic thing about this, because it's SLA driven, you're not really on a schedule either for if you need performance upgrades or things like that. So if we're ever failing to meet an SLA, we'll take that on, right? Or maybe your workloads grow and you need to grow that environment. We can do that as needed. So that's very nice. And it's all with white glove, experience and support. And then one of the newer ones that we announced, I believe this was Accelerate this year as well, Andrew, was the Ransomware Recovery SLA, which was a fantastic thing because I was actually at Accelerate, and we had multiple customers come up to us afterwards and ask about this. And one in particular that supported many different high priority customers and asked us, can you explain this to me? So you're telling me if I have a ransomware attack where my auditors and legal come in and say, I can't move any data because this customer had it happen before, I'm not allowed to move data around. You'll ship me new clean Pure Storage arrays, ship me a new environment that I can then put data onto and start using.
Recover.
And that is the basis of that ransomware recovery SLA that you see on the far right of this, where we'll have a plan in place in 24 hours and get you new hardware within 48 hours so that you can keep those others for forensics and auditing purposes, but still get your environment up and going. I think it's a total differentiator in the industry, along with all these other SLAs you see.
I love especially the no data migration. We've been saying this for a long time. And actually, there's a question in the chat about Evergreen One. We'll do that in the Q&A here at the end a little bit, I think, because yes, there's actually some specific reasons for that too. Last piece, maybe from a new standpoint, thank you, Chris, is about service tiers and even the flexibility here and some new ones. So back to you, Rich.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that's always really what we've seen at Pure is there's a lot of flexibility. This is kind of unique. If you look at all these different service tiers, this is fairly unique in the on-prem business. If you look at other people out there who are doing this, usually have like a high performance and an archive tier, and that's pretty much it. Maybe a midway tier. We have a lot of tiers of performance you can purchase. The purpose behind that is you're going to spend what you need to spend. If you don't need high performance storage, but you need, moderate performance, you can buy performance. You need a little faster, you can get premium. By the way, you can also change these tiers. You can actually, as part of your service agreement, you can change tiers as well. So you can keep up with whatever the requirements are for your business, one. And then two, you're not going to pay any more money than you need to pay.
Yeah, and it keeps going. Now, maybe in real, if you look at this, you may be able to map it to the actual. You can map it to the products within the Pure family, but it's not meant to be product bound because what you are purchasing is an SLA, and then we stand behind that. Of course, we have to provide that with actual stuff under the covers, but that is for us to make sure that we abide by the SLA. With that, I think we are at the end here. So hopefully you feel like we delivered on what we put in the agenda. Went a little bit longer. I'm going to do one last little bonus item just to bring it home, which is a little bit pulling all the way back. And actually, I think you mentioned philosophy all the way back at the beginning. I actually took like philosophy of education in college and still enjoy that side of my brain too. So there's sometimes even this idea of the ship of Theseus for everybody who loves Greek mythology, which I'm sure is everybody here. Maybe not. But it's the idea of so this is a ship. It goes on it, and I'm not gonna. You can even Google me and say like I'm gonna get some of the stories right here that Andrew's not getting right. But basically, super long voyage. Over the course of that voyage, every single component of the ship is replaced. Is it still the same ship? Maybe. Yes. No. I see someone who loves Greek mythology in the chat. So it's a philosophical debate on identity, but also it's the basis of our design and business strategy since we started 2009. This is actually supported by accounting rules where you can actually say from an accounting standpoint, it's the same asset with an insanely long depreciation cycle because it is the same thing and simply everything's stateless and modular and getting replaced and improved and changed over time kind of thing. So felt like that might be a fun way to bring it home. Maybe Chris and then Rich. One, thank you so much for jumping in the boat, being with me here. Any last comments to bring us home?
Yeah, just thank you, Andrew, for having us on. Thank you to everybody out there in the chat. Even the ship of Theseus comments are just making me laugh. It's been amazing. But thank you again, everyone, and can't wait to get to a little bit of Q&A here.
Awesome. So as a philosophy guy, I'm a Platonic idealist. So I believe that identity exists in the mind. Therefore, it's the same ship. So anyway, that's my thought. Had a great time with you folks today, and looking forward to answering some Q&A.
Find all of us online. So before we get into the Q&A, in case you were staying around for the drawing, and hey, if you did, that's cool too. This is the Ember mug. So this is the retail value of $103. It's the kind that you can control with your phone. I believe this is the travel edition. The winner here today, thank you for joining us, is Dave G from New York. And you will be getting a reach out, I believe, from Olivia, or if not, from someone else in Pure to make sure to get that to you, as well as the coffee cards coming out I believe, within a couple days or a week, whatever that original slide said. Making sure to advertise for next month. Please make sure to join us. Join again with Marsha Pierce. Why a DBA joined a Pure storage company. The odd couple. And actually, I think let's go ahead, Olivia, and launch the fourth poll here, if you don't mind. We're going to leave that open in the background as we go to Q&A. We are doing some planning for Coffee Break throughout the rest of this year because it is a series, and sometimes there's new products releases, and there's interesting folks. I'm like, I really want to have this person come on, and then what have they talk about? This whole Venn diagram of how you kind of choose what stuff that Pure does, larger industry landscape trends, interesting people to have on. Okay, but I want to make sure to have you vote on that too. This is a multi-select intentionally. And with that, I think we'll go for the last 5-6 minutes here to a little bit of Q&A. I'll even kind of pull the music up here a little bit just in the background, not hopefully distracting, because this is like we're done. If you need to go, use the bathroom before your next meeting in 6 minutes, that's cool. You don't have to stay on for the gift card or other kind of stuff, but we're still going to hang out and answer some questions. So, I think the first one I just got to do this because John was good about putting this in at the very beginning, even though it's not Pure. Rich, he needs some information on the amount of axes hanging on the walls. You got a little bit of information for John there?
Yeah, 23 guitars in this room, and there's 10 more in the other room that are too old and fragile to keep them hang on a wall.
Whew. So how many years is that taking you? What's the length duration?
I've been collecting since I was 15 years old. So it's a long. I'm 53 now, so it's been a lot of years. But keep in mind, I'm actually selling it down now because I find I don't play a lot of it.
Back. Cool. Okay, next one, and this was actually one in the chat that I'm going to go and choose to embrace a little bit. It was around the question of, Chris, when you were talking about the ransomware recovery SLA, and someone asked, is that only for Evergreen 1? Just being candid, the answer is yes. So I'll just say the answer. But we help people on Evergreen forever. And I'm happy to jump in on this too, but you're the guest, want to give you a first bat. Any kind of commentary on why that's specifically for Evergreen 1 and what we do for non-Evergreen 1 customers for ransomware recovery?
Yeah, I think we kind of riffed on this before, Andrew, as well, where I said, this just seems like an extension of what we've done as pure storage in the past for our customers, just taking care of customers. And candidly, I've seen us before this SLA was in place and official, us take care of customers like that, help with swing gear or bring in other gear. And this is really just another example of putting our money where our mouth is, and putting some legalese behind it. And so that when you're buying pure storage, you have the capability to do that. Right. And I'll let you kind of chime in on the Evergreen 1 piece there.
I've sometimes thought of it as productizing our supply chain competitive advantage, because throughout COVID, we kept very short lead times across the board. You may have seen this if you tried to purchase pure gear. And so we had cases where we helped customers that had been hit by ransomware before this even existed, moving heaven and earth, great account teams to do stuff. Now, for Evergreen 1, because it's an SLA without specific hardware requirements, we sign up to performance level, that's where it's actually logistically possible to wrap some legal guarantees around it. We do the best we can, and that's been pretty amazing stuff. There's stories we can add in there, even like City of New Orleans, for example. That's a public one about how we've helped non-Evergreen 1 customers, but we can offer we sign up for it, legally guarantee, make sure to have things stationed around from a supply depot standpoint to offer this from a guarantee standpoint. It may expand more in the future, but it's actually linked to Evergreen 1 that you're signing up for an SLA and not a specific piece of hardware. And then you think about the complexity of the hardware permutations out there. Okay. Next one, I think actually, Evan, hopefully that hits on it. If that doesn't answer your question, man, we can have a longer and deeper dive on there. Good question from Matt. I see Stan typing an answer, but it's one that Stan, don't stop typing too. That's cool. But asked, does the storage ever go end of life? This would be about flash modules, etc. I'll make that a jump ball for whoever wants to kind of riff on it for a minute.
Sure. So your flash is protected in two ways. Right, your flash is protected in a way that if it ever wears out, we replace it. Now, our wear out rate is incredibly low because of the way we address flash. They're not SSDs. They're actually direct flash modules, which is different. So our wear out rate's very low. That's one thing. The guarantee purpose for that. You only pay for it once. So let's say you want to get a more dense drive in there. We will give you credits back for any money you spent on the original drives, which is pretty cool. That's unheard of in the industry, by the way. And third thing is, as those drives, there is a time you cannot get the same drive to replace them. That's the end of life for us. That's we call a logical end of life, I think, where we can't replace it anymore. Therefore, it's end of life by definition.
With the exact same physical thing.
Right. And they kind of need that for raid strikes to work right. Right. So, we don't call it raid striking, but need it for our data protection policy on the array to work properly.
So at that point, even all of this, even though the components can go end of life, the array itself never goes end of life because we can replace everything non-disruptively, and so it becomes a pure engineering thing that we take care of, or that we stand behind, making sure to supply compatible stuff, and not something that you have to think about. Kind of thing. It actually keys off of the non-cheating decision, answer, Chris, about the number one decision about simplicity. Takes that away a little bit. I got to give you a hard time, Rich. I think with that, we are at 1 minute, and Stan has done an amazing job of walking through and answering some questions. I think the only other one I'm going to highlight, there was just being very candid, a comment about, kind of overall cost. when you play a lot of these factors in, there's a reason that we keep growing. This is not, we are trying to bring premium value at overall good value for the customer. This is not a commodity game, but we are intentionally investing in this space as a high technology play and not a commoditization. And that is one of the pervading things from an underlying Evergreen engineering standpoint. With that, I think I'll do the final call out for next month. Please join Marcia and myself. We'll look forward to seeing you all here. Rich, Chris, Rich, thanks again for being such great guests. Everyone, thank you for joining from the entire Coffee Break team, because there are a bunch of folks, Olivia, Stan, other folks that stand behind in the shadows a little bit, providing the support for all of this that happens. We could not do it without all of them. But from all of them to all of you, thank you so much for joining us this month. And we'll look forward to seeing you for next month's Coffee Break. Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.